This is Every Hornets Boxscore, the only podcast that dares examine every single Charlotte Hornets franchise box score. I'm Doug Branson. I'm joined today by my friend and co-host of the Locked On Hornets podcast, Walker Mail, who is using this opportunity to debut his brand new filming location. Look at this.
Look at all that. Now, one thing that was a little bit of an error on my part, trying to figure out how I wanted my backdrop to look, is the fact that my face would be blocking one half of the bookcase. In fact, 75% of the bookcase. So I didn't realize that. So this is how it looks. I'm going to try.
You've got a memorabilia. You've got a double bookcase situation. Mm-hmm. Lots of memorabilia behind you. But yes, your tall, lanky, bony body is covering up half of it.
You're so accurate. Thank you for going into a soft spot where my love handles are. Yeah, I'm lanky everywhere but my love handles, which is the soft part, which you just kind of went in and decided, you know what, I'm going to make fun of Walker's body. But yes, the bookcase, we have the basketball card display right there.
Can't see any of the players, but I believe that those are basketball players. Mm-hmm.
Trust me, they're Charlotte Hornets. Mm-hmm. I've got my Hornets hard hat. Off of the side, I have Hugo with a suction cup kind of connecting to the basketball cards.
Now, what year was the hard hat? What was that from? Is that a recent year?
I mean, maybe 2019, something like that.
Okay.
It would have been close.
Could possibly be the year we land on.
That year?
Possibly. Could possibly be.
I mean, it's you never know.
You never know because the way that this all works is that we're doing every Hornets box score, but we're not doing them in any particular order. And we're not going and just selecting games that we think are interesting to talk about. The whole premise of this show is that every single game has a story. And so we will randomly select a box score in which to talk about in each of these episodes. But we've broken it up in an interesting way in that we've divided the Hornets franchise history into 5 eras. And so each episode will go into one of those eras and we'll circle through. That way we're talking a little Bobcats, a little bit of original Hornets, a little bit of new Hornets. And so the era that we've landed on today is the late Hornets era. So this sort of the Bobcats are gone, the Hornets are back. And so we'll have some recent box scores to pick through in this particular era. And the way that we randomly select our box score is we go to the B.E.E.S Machine, a machine specifically designed to deal with the power of the Hornets box scores and randomly select one. So Walker, I dare ask, are you ready to hit the B.E.E.S Machine?
You're never ready. You just hope that you're safe. So I'm going to get in a crouching position, make sure that I don't have any sunglasses. I might close my eyes. You're never truly ready, but I am going to be safe during this.
Yeah, and it's part of the reason why I moved to Nashville, honestly. I wanted to keep the city of Charlotte, the city that I love, the city that made me. I wanted to keep it safe from things like the hot take machine and the B.E.E.S Machine. They were just too dangerous. I had to move them out of the state.
Does Broadway just shut down when you turn this thing on?
No, Broadway powers up. That's what powers Broadway in Nashville, the country music capital of the world.
Yeah, when you fire this thing off, hey,
Music
that's
City,
what the Jimmy will do.
Speaking of music, Music City. Speaking of music, what powers the B.E.E.S Machine is the Jimmy, which is my guitar, which I never named my guitar, so I guess it's named Jimmy now. You've named Walker. You're responsible for naming my guitar.
You're welcome. You can never give yourself a nickname. I don't know if you can name your guitar or if those rules are the same, if they apply, but we made it happen here. Your guitar is the Jimmy, and that's what we will call it from now on.
Now we're moving into the future in these box scores, and so I needed to add a little bit of extra power to the B.E.E.S Machine. So I used to just turn the Jimmy handle, and that's what powered the B.E.E.S Machine, or that's what turned it on. Now I've actually got to play a note. So if you're ready,
you're gonna play.
Well, I just I got to give it a little bit of juice. It's like giving the car a little bit of gas. If your first car was like mine, it was a beater, little 95 Honda Accord, 95 gold Honda Accord. One of the doors didn't work. The air conditioning was kind of suspect. It's kind of one of those situations. You got to give it a little gas.
Kind of like I drive now. Yeah, I totally get it. That makes sense.
Okay, what do you drive now?
No, it's not necessarily true. My AC is kind of hit or miss. I need to get that fixed, but it's a Jeep Cherokee.
You. I have one challenge question, and you folded on that one.
I did. It's a Jeep Cherokee. That's what I have. 2016. It's a good car. It's something that can easily be fixed. I just need to do it. It's one of those things you just need to take care of. But it's not the 95 Honda Accord. Like, all the doors shut. It does, speaking of being safe, it does get me from A to B in a safe way. So I'm okay.
All right, let's do it. Let's hit the B.E.E.S Machine.
Bees everywhere!
I feel like I'm in a heavy metal band music video where we are trying to go straight grunge and be edgy. And whoa, okay, boom. 2000. You called it.
I told you I upgraded it. I told you. Now it just appears immediately on the screen. So if you're watching this on YouTube, yeah, I've upgraded the B.E.E.S Machine. It takes us right to the Basketball Reference box score that it is randomly selected. And it has put us in April 3rd in 2019, April 3rd, Charlotte Hornets at New Orleans Pelicans. So we're late into the 2018-19 season. Let's see, final score. Charlotte Hornets 115 over the New Orleans Pelicans 109. So they win this game in New Orleans in the Smoothie King Center. One of my favorite names for a center or arena, Smoothie King. Love it. So we're in 2018-19, Walker. That means that we are in a very weird season, right? I mean, it's the season.
And approaching the end of that very weird season, not even in the middle, if you want. Yeah, we're at the very end. We have big time decisions coming up. And you're in the middle of a playoff race in 2019 where you're on the outside looking in, but there's still a realistic possibility in James Borrego's debut. A lot of stuff going on around this time.
Yeah, James Borrego's first year, right? And so, but they still have a roster that has a lot of holdovers. You know, you've got Kemba Walker in the final year of his deal. You've got MKG still. You've got Nick Batum still. You've got a lot of familiar faces. And if we kind of scroll down here into the box score, you can see starting lineup for this game: Kemba Walker, Miles Bridges, Dwayne Bacon, Bismack Biyombo, Michael Kidd-Gilchrist. Your reserves for this game who played are Jeremy Lamb, Frank Kaminsky, Malik Monk, Devonte Graham, and Billy Hernan-Gomez. So you've got a lot of holdovers from that previous era. So that's why I say it's weird, because James Borrego has enough tools to win basketball games, but you're also trying to get young players in and move towards the future. But, you know, they win this game on the back of Kemba Walker's 32 points.
Yeah, well, to no surprise of anybody here that's a Hornets fan, it's Kemba Walker who ends up winning this game. You see his 32 points, his 7 assists, getting to the foul line 13 times and hitting 12 of them.
Well,
and
13
taking
attempts.
13 attempts, yeah, hitting 12 of them.
Well, no, don't apologize, because it's something I do a lot, and I feel like when I listen to basketball podcasts, it is one of the most common mistakes that we make when talking about a box score is we look at the 13 attempts and we say 13 trips to the line. It's just like the easiest mistake to make.
I guess that's true. So maybe it's not. I feel like, 13 attempts, that's fine. I feel like that's got you.
You want to say you're right, that every time he steps up to the line, that counts as a trip to the line.
Yeah, how long does your trip have to be? If you do the take a step back and then take a step forward right back to the line, does that count as a trip?
Well, so Russell Westbrook definitely took some trips, right? He was didn't they make the rule because he would go all the way back to the mid-court line and then come back, and they were like, all right,
refresh.
You can't do that anymore.
Yeah, he would. I think honestly, Giannis takes so much time at the line to where you could count that as another trip. If you just refresh that time, you could go to the moon and back and be there before Giannis took a free throw shot. Yes,
you could eat a mushroom. If a player did eat a mushroom before each free throw, that would be a trip to the free throw line every time.
It would. That's true. Yeah,
it'd be wild for them.
Different type of trip, and just shoot for the middle goal. If you're seeing 3 off of the shrooms, shoot for the middle one and you might hit it.
Shoot for the cloud with the 3 unicorns on it. You'll be fine.
Yeah, it's just always the middle, because you're going to be seeing all sorts of different little characters up there. Just shoot for the middle thing. Either way. 12 made free throws on 13 attempts. But also, so this is Kemba, and then it's pretty much the bench So 7 3-pointers made from the bench. Malik got one. Frank hit 3. Devonte Graham, he comes in, hits 3 3-pointers, another field goal in just 16 minutes of play. Remember, Doug, this is a really much needed game for them. And it's not like the Pelicans were a good basketball team at this time. This is the team that was so bad, it allowed them to get the number 1 overall pick and select Zion Williamson, just to show you kind of where this team was at that point.
Can I get a rundown of who they're playing against? Because I went back and listened to the episode that you and I produced, a game recap episode for Locked On Hornets. You know, that's the cool thing about this particular era is that we can go back and listen to episodes that we actually did talking about these games. I do also have the Charlotte Observer article and the At the Hive articles that we can dig into as well. But I went back into our episode and we did make a point that it was Julius Randle and a bunch of players we had never heard of. So it was Julius Randle, Ian Clark, Elfrid Payton, who we knew who Elfrid Payton was, Jahlil Okafor, and Kenrich Williams was one of the starters for this game. Solomon Hill, Stanley Johnson, Christian Wood. That's an interesting name there. And don't get confused here if you're watching. This is not Davis Bertans.
I still don't know who that is, but it's his twin brother. It has to be his twin, right?
Well, it's his brother. I don't know if it's his twin brother, but they do look very similar, which, you know, that's similar. What brothers tend to look very similar. But this is, I'm going to say Davis Bertans, but I'm not totally sure on the pronunciation of the name, but it is his brother from Latvia. And he was on the bench as well for the Pelicans. And then Cheikh Diallo, also getting some run. So it was a bunch of Pelicans, nobodies, no Anthony Davis. He was about to go to LA. So yeah, this was a game that they probably should have won, and they did.
No, and they needed it. They got it thanks to Kemba Walker, thanks to a few guys off of the bench hitting some 3-pointers and limited minutes from Malik Monk and Devonte coming in and really helping this team get that victory. And Frank Kaminsky, I think we just talked about him in Locked On Hornets. Was it the last episode we did when we did maybe the 44 was that jersey number?
Yep.
Yeah. So Frank Kaminsky coming in 28 minutes and hitting 6 field goals, 3 of them 3-pointers.
Well, and we mentioned in that episode that Frank did have some moments in his career with the Charlotte Hornets. And I made the point that Frank Kaminsky tended to have those moments when he could get some valuable minutes at the center position and not constantly be forced to be the stretch 4 role. Offensively, he just played better at the center position. And I think in this game, getting 28 minutes, backing up Biyombo and a smaller lineup, probably Bridges would be your 4 in this lineup with Kemba, Bacon, Biyombo, and Kidd-Gilchrist. So Kaminsky probably got some center run in this game and was able to take advantage and knock down some 3-point shots. And, you know, he had a good fake too, that he could get to the, you know, that's how he could get to the rim, is, you know, people would respect that 3-point shot. He could fake and get in pretty quickly.
He just couldn't beat people once he faked, and then he would shy away from contact once he did.
The fake had to be devastating, right? I mean, the fake had to really have them slipping on a banana, like whoa, like they had to be hit by a turtle shell, right? Mm-hmm. His fake had to be blue turtle shell in order for him to win the race. But when he was at the center position, he had more of an opportunity to do that. But yeah, Frank Kaminsky, good Kaminsky game here, 6 of 13.
Can we go back to the Pelicans roster for a second on your basketball reference page? I feel like already frustrating you. I feel like this is the roster that is made up of disappointing late lottery picks, or even just lottery picks in general, because you have Elfrid Payton, I believe was a lottery pick for the Magic once upon a time. We all remember him for the crazy hair, but Elfrid Payton, a nice 1 of 8 in this game, not necessarily a great offensive player, was Elfrid Payton. But then Jahlil Okafor, lottery pick, didn't pan out as much as certainly we thought at the time. No. Solomon Hill, Stanley Johnson, a couple of other guys.
Solomon Hill. I have a basketball crush on Solomon Hill. I always wanted to, for like 5 consecutive off seasons, I was begging the Hornets to sign Solomon Hill.
Why? I did not know that. Were you doing that off of the air?
No, I was doing that on the air. I always liked Solomon Hill. That. Physical player, you know. I mean, you could get a bucket or 2 here and there. I like Solomon
Pelicans
Hill.
Gave him, he got one of the 2016 contracts that was really bad, and it was the Pelicans who dished that out. There were a lot of players that got overpaid, and it's not the player's fault. as you know. I would say that about Nick Batum, who's also on the box score, but with a nice DNP.
DNP.
Yeah.
Well, we can talk about that. We can talk about the reason that Nick Batum got this DNP and the surprise that Michael Kidd-Gilchrist got 20 minutes in this game, because as we said, this was a weird season, right? They're moving away from the old era. So Nick Batum's getting a lot of DNPs by the late portion of this season. MKG got a lot of DNPs as well. They were officially moving on from Michael Kidd-Gilchrist. And I was listening back to that episode, Walker, and that surprised both of us because we thought the Hornets were going to run, and we thought that meant that MKG was going to get a lot better looks, I guess, because he's a transition player. Like he can, that's what he did at Kentucky. And we thought that, hey, there could be a little bit of an MKG revival. Didn't happen. They just moved away from him completely. But it looks like they may have, because they were suddenly in the playoffs race, and I think that surprised the Hornets. And they started to get a little bit more serious. Not serious enough to play Nick Batum, but they were playing Michael Kidd-Gilchrist a little bit more towards the end of the season. He was 2 of 7 of this game in this game, 5 points, 5 rebounds, 1 of 2 from 3. So he knocked down a 3-pointer.
Well, Doug, this second half, well, yeah, that I have a little bit of the defending of MKG shooting numbers. Like that year, I believe he shot 34%. And no, it was not a large sample size. But also MKG is viewed as this Ben Simmons type player. And that's not true. I mean, he was nowhere near a good shooter. He doesn't even touch the neighborhood of good or average. He is a bad shooter. But he could hit enough to where you just say, hey, at least he's taking them, where that was the argument that's been the argument for Ben Simmons. He just refuses to take them. MKG shot 34% on a very small sample size one year. I think it was like 0.7 attempts. I think this was the season, if I'm not mistaken. But that's okay. 0.7 attempts, shoot it every once in a while. You hit 34%. Just roll with it. So 34, yeah, that would have been 2018, 2019. Overall field goal percentage, solid enough. We know how good he was defensively. That I'll always defend MKG a little bit because we all want to remember the elbow, like so in. It's such a bad form, the photo that circulates on social media, no doubt about it. But he was hitting at an okay clip that year. So yeah, like it's something that I think should have called for him to play more than the 18 minutes a game that he played that year compared to the 25 that he played previously.
And not his final year in Charlotte. He would play in the next season for 12 games before moving on to Dallas, but he played in 64 games in the 2018-19 campaign, started 3. And as you said, yeah, I mean, the 3-point percentage wasn't that bad, but he just didn't take a ton.
2 things real quickly. MKG, I remember having MKG at the podium going into the following season, not this one, but the next season, where I think it was Rick Bonnell, front row, asking MKG, has your role been communicated to you? And or something to that. It's not verbatim, but something to that effect. And MKG said no comment. It was clear that this was going to be not 2018, 2019, right? Because we saw the minutes diminish. We knew it was coming, right. But MKG all but confirmed it going into the next season when he said no comment. It was clear he and James Borrego weren't on the same page. He only played 12 games, you just saw, and then he goes to Dallas, doesn't play much there either, and now he's out of the league.
Well, you know, endings are hard. Transitions are hard. Franchise transitions are hard, and they're going to have victims. And you know, Nick Batum getting the DNPs, he would have to move on and find his way again. MKG, yeah, unfortunately. I just did see a news article where he is doing some great stuff out in the community. I mean, he's you know, trying to do some stuff after basketball. Dude. Yeah, I mean, he's a solid dude. And, you know, unfortunately, yeah, the NBA dream probably didn't work out as he planned it to. But yeah, I mean, the ending was hard with Kemba Walker too. It's a great what if game to play, Walker. What if the Hornets did mess around and make the playoffs? Because this win comes at the end of the season, and their season comes down to a game that the Knicks played, I believe, against Orlando, that had the Knicks won, it would have found the Charlotte Hornets in the playoffs, but they didn't win.
I think maybe the Hornets played Orlando in their last game of the season. Yeah. And I think Orlando beat Charlotte, or maybe I'm not sure, but you're right. It did come down to the Knicks, and ultimately Orlando would end up reaching that 8th spot anyway. So one thing I do want to capture too over the second half of the season, I think it's important to what you said, Doug, moving on from some of the former Bobcats, some of the more established guys. If you go to the schedule, I don't know if you can, going to the schedule, especially in the second half of the season.
I can.
That's what makes you the best in the biz. There is a point where James Borrego decides to go completely to the young players and go in player development mode. And they were done. James Borrego could not have had 100% confidence that they were going to be in playoff contention, not make the playoffs. That's not what I'm talking about, but just be in playoff contention. And then there was a point where they shifted all the way to youth. Dwayne Bacon, Devonte Graham, those guys end up winning games. Malik Monk, Devonte, Dwayne Bacon, Miles Bridges. They end up winning more games than you would expect. And I think that's the game you just clicked on, right? They win 4 in a row. They have that game against the Lakers where they lose. I think it was tightly contested, but they were done, Doug. And the young guys got them back into playoff contention to where there was a possibility the last night of the regular season, and they ended up falling short. But that's what was crazy about this. 4 wins in a row. They're going all young. They lose 3 after that, but they're still solidly in. They win another 4 in a row.
But this game against New Orleans, this game against New Orleans that we're talking about now was the beginning of another 4-game winning streak, because essentially going into that New Orleans game, the only chance that they had to make the playoffs, they had to get some help and win out.
Yeah.
And they win 4 in a row. And then, final game, which I'm, sure will randomly select at some point. They play Orlando, which I can't imagine. I mean, I'm going to cheat and go ahead and click on this.
Don't click on it. Oh, we've ruined the episode in 2032. We've ruined it. We've teased it.
But here's Orlando. Think about this. Orlando Magic. It's the year after Clifford gets removed from Charlotte. He lands in Orlando. So poetic. Talk about poetic. Yeah. Steve Clifford ends the Hornets' magical run that could have ended up in the playoffs. But Walker, talk to me about this. What if they win? Okay, because they lose, they end up. Kemba Walker makes All-NBA, and he does so primarily because he led this. It was Kemba and the Avengers. It was Kemba and all these baby bees, but he put the team on his back. I've got this interesting stat for you, Walker. So Kemba Walker had 20 games. He scored 32 points in this game that we're talking about now. He had 20 games in this season, 2018-19, where he scored 32 or more points. How many games did a Hornets player combined this past season that we're recording? We're recording this in 2022. So in the 21-22 campaign, how many games did a Hornets player score 32 or more points?
I actually would have guessed a lot. You said it was 20 for Kemba Walker this
20
season.
20 for Kemba.
Okay. So I think LaMelo had a couple. I know Kelly Oubre exploded maybe a couple of times. Gordon got a 40-pointer. I don't know. Give me 16.
The answer is 20.
Okay.
But that's combined. Okay.
Yeah,
that's LaMelo getting 6. That's Rozier getting a couple. You're right. Kelly had a couple. Gordon put up like 40 on San Antonio randomly out of nowhere. And in a game they probably could have won without 40 points from Gordon Hayward. He throws 40 on him. And so combined, you had LaMelo, Miles, Terry, Gordon, and Kelly. 5 players put up 30-point games. Kemba put 20 30-point games together in this All-NBA, 32 plus. He probably had a few more that were 30 or 31. But 32 or more, 20 games, he gets All-NBA. They don't want to pay him the All-NBA Supermax. They let him go. So what if they make the playoffs? Do you think the Hornets then go, we got to give him the money?
I wonder, because I think hindsight helps me answer this a lot because we know how Mitch Kupchak operates. And Mitch Kupchak is one to really try to keep his expectations in check. In fact, a lot of people might argue that he keeps them too much in check. Hey, if you do something, then you might actually be a playoff contender.
Too much in Kupchak?
Yeah, that's true. So if Mitch Kupchak looks at this team that actually makes the playoffs, let's say that the end of the regular season, it breaks right for Charlotte. They get in as that 8 seed. Remember, they would have faced the NBA champs in the Toronto Raptors. Now, Orlando beat Toronto in game 1 of that series, and that was DJ Augustine hitting a game-winning three-pointer. So Orlando's up 1-0 on Toronto. I believe the Raptors would then go on to win 4 straight. But let's just say the Hornets have the same exact record in that series. They go 4-1. Kemba goes off for 30. Let's say he averages 30 a game, but they only win the one contest. I do think that they still probably end up leaving or end up letting Kemba go. It's still a fascinating what if question. I do end up thinking that Kemba goes on to Boston because in Charlotte's mind, this is something that a lot of people lose sight of. Charlotte did give Kemba technically the best offer. Kemba was going to make more money with the Charlotte Hornets than he would have with any other franchise. The reason he leaves is because he thought he was going to get a lot more still with Charlotte because they had that capability to offer so much more. And the rationale of I'm going to go play for close to a championship title contender. But in Charlotte's eyes, they're thinking we're still giving you a lot of money. You are approaching the wrong age to where you're going to be in your twilight soon. It's not like the injury concerns were a complete shock with Kemba. It's a fascinating question because you could see it go the opposite way. I do think they still would have done the same exact thing.
I'm in agreement with you because I think they knew what people found out later. They knew about the injury history. And I think they didn't want to talk about it. And you don't want to say anything like that about a player going out the door. But I think that was a fear of investing that much money. But I think you would talk to some other people that I think are convinced that they would have done it. I don't think you and I are saying something that was absolutely correct. I think there were people that would say, no, if they went out and make the playoffs, they might ride with Kemba and try to make it work and release get rid of everyone else. They end up stretching Batum and Marvin moves on. MKG would move on in the next season. But let me say something happy about Kemba Walker. He won them this game. This game that they absolutely needed to stay in playoff contention after losing 3 straight. Okay, Kemba Walker, you see 32 points, right? But that's not the story of this game. Let me click on the old fourth quarter. Kemba Walker in the fourth quarter. You love the fourth quarter button?
Oh, you love it. The good old fourth quarter button. I'm here to emphasize that button.
7 of 9 from the field. Only 3 3-point attempts, but he makes 2 of them. 6 free throw attempts, not trips to the line. 6 free throw attempts. 21 points, 1 assist. But he's scoring, baby.
This was his time.
That's all he was in here to do, was to get buckets and win this game for the Charlotte Hornets. That's why he gets my Herman Boone Award. Fourth quarter. Remember the Titans? One of my favorite movies. He gets the Herman Boone Award for fourth quarter explosion. 21 points for Kemba Walker.
Yeah, you see, can you scroll down a little bit? Miles Bridges hits a field goal and Frank Kaminsky hits one. That's it. Kemba's got the rest of the 7 needed to win this game in the fourth.
Lamb gets 3. Lamb gets to the line. Man, they got to the line
a lot
in
true.
this fourth quarter.
That's
but yeah,
true.
field goal, in terms of field goals, you're right. Yeah, it's Walker and then a few others.
So it's the bench that helps them keep pace throughout the game, and then it's closing time for Kemba, and he takes care of it. Cardiac Kemba shows up one of the last times in a Charlotte Hornets uniform before he moves on to Boston.
Shout out JP McCura. Talked about him in the jersey Who Wore It Best.
We got
episodes.
a YouTube comment that gave JP McCura some love. So didn't expect that, but that's cool. I'm here for the weird, obscure Hornet shout-outs.
Well, Shelvin Mack, another, I had higher hopes for Shelvin Mack than were realized, unfortunately. Just couldn't come in and really make that much of an impact.
Speaking of Orlando, I'll always remember Orlando's hype graphics that every team will tweet out. And Orlando, when Shelvin Mack was on the team, they decided to put a picture of him alongside the stat assist leader per game for Orlando. And it was like 4.1 or 4.2. And they decided to say, hey, yeah, we've got Shelvin Mack. Great facilitator, leader in assists. Like,
Mack
all right,
is back. Mack attack.
Is this what we're supposed to be excited for in Orlando? Yeah, and Shelvin.
Orlando, we can't make fun of that. I mean, Orlando and Charlotte, we're a little bit. Oh, I know. We're a little bit brethren in how much we've had to suffer. Although
it is the Spider-Man meme.
Orlando did get those glorious Dwight Howard years. We got one Dwight Howard year.
Not so glorious. Yeah.
Not as glorious, but he had moments. I mean, I know people want to really just rip that whole era apart. I'm a realist. I understand it wasn't the answer. He also had some pretty magnificent games. I mean, it was fun to watch when he would break out the vintage Dwight. I mean, he got them a win over Golden State that they had no business winning. Anyway, it's a completely different season. You just got me on a tangent.
We'll get there.
Going to the newspaper here, Brett Martell from the AP has the write-up and mentions Devonte Graham. Now, Graham was a 2018 second-round draft choice, and he puts in, let me get the final number for him in this one. He put in 13 points on 4 of 8 shooting, 3 of 6 from 3. This, to me, was a game of hints. We were getting hints about what Devonte Graham would be in the following season. We probably got some hints about, some other players as well. Like Dwayne Bacon was a -10 in this game somehow. 22 minutes, efficient, 3 of 6, 2 of 4. But how are you a -10?
We thought the 3 of 6 was the hint. We thought the 2 of 4 was the hint, but really it was the -10. That was the hint. And we went to the shiny object, and then we got burned by it.
Yeah, so this was a game of hints. Although Malik Monk was a +10, 9 points, 6 rebounds for Malik. Malik hitting the boards in this one, had a block. Mm-hmm. Wow, Malik Monk playing the center role.
We've needed one for a long time.
1 of 4 from 3 though for Malik Monk. That was a story for sure. But yeah, so this was an interesting what? Yeah, I had to do it. I had to say
it. You did. You did. I didn't know if we wanted to continue to talk about Malik there. I do want to steer it more towards Dwayne Bacon, talking about some of the hints. I have a rabbit hole for a Pelicans player, and if we get that, I'll try to sneak it in. If not, maybe at the very end. But the Dwayne Bacon conversation, 2nd round pick, weirdly enough, gets a start in his first ever action. Remember, because Nick Batum goes down with injury, Dwayne Bacon's rookie year. And so Bacon, as a 2nd round, 40th overall pick, comes in and starts right away, but doesn't play all that much that year. It's not that much of a surprise. Again, James Borrego and the Hornets, they go to youth. Bacon comes in. Dwayne Bacon shoots over 40% from 3 on this little stretch for the entire season, but is really impressive in this stretch run, is actually efficient. You see a decent amount of these 3 for 6 games in the minutes that he's playing. Going to the Charlotte Hornets luncheon. Where was it? I think it was at Ruth's Chris in Charlotte. We go over maybe Capitol Grill. I forget.
Good old Ruth's Chris.
Yeah, maybe Capitol Grill though. It was a steakhouse. And James Borrego is talking about the expectations for his 2nd season. Somebody asked a question about Dwayne Bacon, and I remember it. He says, if we have a big year, a lot of it is going to depend on Dwayne Bacon carrying a decent amount of the load for us, or he's going to be a big part of us having a big year. Dwayne Bacon comes in, starts, and Doug, the first 10 games that he played that following season were as ugly as it possibly could get.
Yep.
There were measures of Dwayne Bacon, not bottom 5, not bottom 10. I mean this literally the worst offensive player in the league, because he wasn't going to the foul line. He wasn't hitting 3-pointers. He wasn't efficient at all. And yet he kept shooting and shooting and shooting to the point where after 10 games, Borrego actually gave him a little bit of a leash. Then you couldn't anymore. And then Dwayne never bounced back. He actually played overseas this past season after one more year with Orlando and Steve Clifford. But this was a mirage, man. Like the second half, I was like, all right, awesome. 2nd round steal. Let's go. And in the end, it just never worked out for him. But this was his heyday. We are in the middle of Dwayne Bacon's most successful run in the association.
Yeah, Clifford loved Bacon, talked about how he had all the tools to be a starter in the league. I mean, he had high praise for him. And then, and I thought Bacon always served as an interesting contrast to Malik Monk, who I think it's safe to say Clifford was not as high on.
Very safe.
But both players, well, Malik, I think, is having more success right now than Dwayne Bacon, who would go and try
100%.
Would try to go and recover his career with Clifford in Orlando, and it didn't work out there either. So you just never know the trajectory of these players, especially when you're talking about Dwayne Bacon out of the 2nd round. I mean, Malik Monk should have been a little bit more predictable where he was drafted. But yeah, you just never know how things are going to work out. And it also goes to show you that even when a coach that you respect, like Steve Clifford, is high on a player, doesn't necessarily guarantee that player is going. It so much is on the player. They have to put in the work. They have to be willing to do certain things. And there are things that are outside of their control, injuries and different players, it's what we're dealing with book night right now. Both injuries and rotational realities are really going to hamper book night's ability unless he gets a couple of breaks and stays prepared.
Well, it's a problem for Bacon, too, because it ended in a way for him, or it was going south in a way that you felt bad for him, because I do feel like maybe he wasn't doing what the coach asked him as far as not shooting as much. I don't know. Like, I have zero insight on what was taking place there. I do know that Dwayne Bacon loved to hoop. He was one of the first guys that was just fine going down to the G League. Remember, he kind of had the line of most people view it as a punishment. I view it as a way to get better in the NBA. I view it as a way where I'm going to get some run. And Devonte, I think, kind of embodied that. Dwayne, now, it was at the beginning of it. And then we got to a point where Dwayne was, all right, I had enough of this. Like, I'm going to go back to the NBA. But early on, Dwayne was like, I'm cool, man. Like, I'm loving playing in the G League.
It's really strange, too, because that recovery year in 2021, he played in 72 games, started 50 of them, played almost 26 minutes per game, and he didn't play with anyone in the following season. It's just really to kind of figure that out, like what happened. I mean, he was averaging 11 points. Yeah, it was just terribly inefficient shooting. Problems all over the place. So yeah, Dwayne Bacon, interesting story. So Walker, I mentioned earlier that this particular game, we actually did a game recap episode of Locked On Hornets on this game. And I have the recording. I found it deep within the archives. And
yes.
You never know what you're going to find, whether it's in an article that was written in the Charlotte Observer or on At the Hive or something that we did on the show. You just never know what you're going to run into when we do one of these Every Hornets box scores. And I happened upon a certified gem, one of the most famous lounges that we ever did on Locked On Hornets. For those unfamiliar, uninitiated Locked On Hornets listeners, the lounge was something that we still occasionally do, but used to do a lot more consistently, would be our pre-show routine. We would hit record, we'd get ready for the show, and we'd air a little bit of that prior to each episode. And so I have that lounge, and I'd like to play it for you right now if you would like that.
We had some good ones. I want to preface this by saying we've had some good ones. There is one that stands out in my mind as the best. I think I called it the best at that time. Just go ahead. I'll save the rest after I hear it. But let's.
What do I know? I'm just sitting here producing a Locked On Hornets podcast, getting filthy rich.
Oh, checkity check. I feel like there's just a lot in my face.
Yeah, but it'll keep you. You were a little pee-poppy last time because I don't have any covers on these yet.
I gotcha. A little pee-poppy.
A little pee-poppy.
That's what you like to do. Pee-pop, pee-pop, pee-pop. Oh, man.
There it is.
That's it. That's the most famous.
Pee-pop,
There's
pee-pop.
so many different one-liners. And that's when we're not doing the show, but that's what makes it all the more great. Just trying to get ready. Yeah, that lounge is the best. I heard it. I didn't realize you were rolling at that time, and I immediately called it the best lounge ever. I wasn't ready for it. So you're telling me that was actually a part of this show that we did. Although so August 4th, following day.
April 4th.
April 4th, excuse me. Yeah, April 4th. We did that. That was that's crazy. The B.E.E.S Machine knows, man.
And I'm telling you, some of these, every time we land on one of these, there's some kind of story. There's something interesting. And yeah, it's funny. Walk down memory lane. I miss being in the same room as you. One day I'm going to join you in that bedroom.
You know, we did. Yes. I've been waiting for so long. You used to be in my bedroom all the time, and then you moved to Nashville, and now you're never in my bedroom. I really miss that, Doug. I really miss you being in my bedroom. But you're right, it does make for a lot better show. Because we've learned to gravitate and adapt to doing this when you're in Nashville over the internet. We've had to have connection issues where I might be pixelated sometimes, but I'm not when you're looking at me face to face. I promise I'm not a part of the Matrix. This is reality when we're in the same room, and it helps. But we've adapted, and I think that makes us stronger, though, the fact that we've been able to figure out different ways to do the show.
Well, and the Hornets adapted in 2019. Segue, they adapted by really just giving the ball to Kemba Walker and telling him to go score 1,000 points every single game. And he, to his credit, he said, "Okay, I will do that. I will score 1,000 points every game
40 wins
on my own." Get to the line. I mean, he got to the line. What would I say? 13 attempts in this game, and that was such a key part of his All-NBA journey. And it kind of makes me think about the Hornets at present. Again, I understand people will go back and listen to these someday and may not understand that we are talking about the 2021-22 season that we just got finished with. We're in the off season heading into this third season for LaMelo Ball. But, looking at these numbers and how much Kemba was able to get to the line makes me think a lot about LaMelo Ball and the growth that he's going to have to make. And he's on a trajectory where he's doing it much sooner than Kemba Walker did. But I think there's some similar things going on where he's shooting the lights out, good natural scorer. But there are some things in his game that have to improve. And one of those things is getting to the line, just like Kemba in this era.
Well, the thing is, LaMelo, not only does he clearly have the superstar potential that Kemba, he probably topped out, right? I mean, he got to be an all-star here 4 times in a row. That's impressive.
Third-team All-NBA, I think. Yeah, that was topped out for Kemba Walker, for sure.
Yeah, there's not much more ceiling to reach there for Kemba. LaMelo, at the end of his career, we should be talking about him as a multiple-time All-NBA guy.
First-team All-NBA.
That kind of possibility for LaMelo. But he's starting off so much better immediately, where Kemba, it took a long time for him to be a good three-point shooter, not LaMelo. And it's still crazy to think that was one of the biggest knocks on him coming into the league, but he proved himself the second year more so. He did it his first year, and then, okay, is it just coming into the league and you caught fire for your first season? No, it's legit. And there are a couple of different levels that he shoots well. His second season, he proved that. Plus, he's also a better facilitator than Kemba Walker is. So automatically, 2 things that it takes to be a very good All-NBA level point guard. LaMelo has that at 20 years old, being able to shoot from the three-point line and being an awesome passer, which is a really nice foundation to start on.
Well, what's interesting is something that you brought up in that episode of Locked On Hornets that I've been mentioning, which is by the time we get to this game in April and we see what Kemba did in the fourth quarter and we see what he did overall in the game, his ability to score. And you mentioned that whether, we didn't know if he was going to make All-NBA or not, though we had some hints that he was on that trajectory. But you just mentioned that even though we don't know whether he's going to be All-NBA, we are seeing All-NBA performances on a night in, night out basis, and it has become normalized for Kemba Walker. Like, we got used to Kemba just stepping out on the floor every single night and doing something special. It was weird if he didn't do it. And that truly is, like, when you talk about what makes an All-NBA player, obviously they have to get voted into that team. But I think if you just step back and say, how do I know if somebody's on that All-NBA trajectory? I think that to me is the measurement. Is a player going out every night, and if they don't do well, you go, what the hell happened? And LaMelo's not there yet. And that'll be interesting if that happens next season or the season after that, where we go, wow, like every single night he's doing this incredible thing. And when he doesn't do it, we're shocked.
Yeah, and LaMelo, I think a couple of things have become normalized for him. The highlight pass, we're going to get one every game. And I think we talked about this, maybe it was last year, maybe it was at the beginning of this season, where we saw every single game there was going to be some highlight behind the back, awesome cross-court fireball from him, and it was going to circulate on social media. That became normalized. And I remember there were a couple of passes one game, and I remember making a note of it at the time. I forget what game it was, but those were not going to be talked about dishes. We were just going to discuss ho-hum. LaMelo had 7-8 assists, whatever it was. But there were a couple of awesome passes that on the LaMelo scale, probably just above average and pretty damn good passes. But for anybody else, it's phenomenal. And that's where we become the whole, we're a prisoner of the moment. Or not prisoner of the moment, mind you, but just we're getting used to it and we're not giving it the light of day that we should. Hey, this is crazy. Like what LaMelo is doing is unbelievable. And that's what, especially in this stretch, Doug, as we're kind of talking about the end of that regular season, 2018, 2019, what Kemba was doing even more so, he averaged I think over the last maybe 6 games they played, he averaged over 32 points per game on 50% shooting. It became a must-have, but it also became normal. And you start a season off strong, you end it strong. That's what allows you to get third team All-NBA.
Well, while I look up that to confirm what you just said, while I look that up, you want to take us on a small rabbit hole with somebody from the New Orleans side. So, okay, yeah, I just pulled it up. So if I just look at the month of April where they played,
a nice month.
Yeah, 6 games, okay. He averaged 34 points per game, 6 assists, 4.5 rebounds on 52% shooting, almost 53% if we're rounding up, and 41% from 3 on 8.5 attempts. Just absolutely elite numbers. And again, I want to remind you, the Hornets absolutely needed every single game.
Yeah.
And they almost did it. They almost did it had it not been for Orlando. And he put up 43 against Orlando in that loss. It wasn't even his fault on 16 of 25 shooting.
Well, yeah, and so you look at some of the tough teams they beat to get there. It's why everybody was out on the Hornets. They beat Minnesota, which, okay, not that big of a deal. But then they beat Boston. They beat Toronto for the second time in the month of March, because the first victory they had in the month of March against Toronto was the Jeremy Lamb shot. I went back and looked at this most recent game in Toronto.
Toronto 3 times between March and April. That's crazy.
And Jeremy Lamb hit another.
So they beat him once in March and then beat him in April. Yeah.
Okay, sorry. So in April, yes, that's my fault. But they beat him the second time, the month of April, where they got that win against Toronto. That was another big Jeremy Lamb 3 that sealed the deal. If you go back and look at the play-by-play, that was not the 48-footer that Jeremy hit the first time. So they beat Boston, they beat Toronto, they beat San Antonio, who was still respected at that time. And then they have a pretty close game against the Lakers. They end up losing. They lose big to Golden State, Utah. So that 3-game stretch, that kind of killed them. But that was always going to be tough for them to beat some of those teams. And then they go 4 in a row. I look at that stretch. They didn't make the playoffs. It just there were victories there that should have never happened. So just interesting to go back to that time. All right,
let's go down the rabbit hole.
All right, so you brought up the Pelican side of things on this box score. I'm going to talk about a former Charlotte Hornet that we're looking at right now, if you're watching us on YouTube, and that would be Christian Wood. The Charlotte Hornets were the second team that he ever played for. But, Doug, this is actually an interesting time for Christian Wood. I call this Christian hits the hardwood. Okay, so this game...
It's so bad.
It's so bad, but yet so good. So this game happened in the middle of Christian Wood's coming out party. It is. It's so Wood.
You missed it. You had it right there in front of you.
Let me get to it.
It's so bad, but it's so Wood. Like, you had it right in front of you, and instead you go, it's so bad, it's so good.
All right.
And so you continue to be bad. Go ahead, continue.
Christian, so bad it's so Wood, played for Philadelphia first. He was waived twice. God, you're ruining this. He was waived twice, and then he signed a couple of 10 days before he signed a rest of the season contract with Philly, right? That would be it for the 76ers. Didn't spend much time there. Then he signs with Charlotte, has his moments, actually was called upon against the Clippers and played 23 minutes against a good team where Charlotte lost by 3. So had some moments, but that was it. Moves on. Doesn't see any action for a year before Milwaukee picks him up, but gets less run with the Bucks than any other franchise even preceding it, gets waived real late in the season. And this is where the Pelicans decide to pick him up, Doug. They needed front court depth due to the Anthony Davis situation. They had not granted AD's trade wish. Davis wasn't playing. He was too busy wearing the That's All Folks t-shirt. So they went to Christian Wood. And
Holy
Christian,
for holies. Look at these numbers.
Yes. Christian actually credits Anthony Davis a lot for his mentorship and helping the gym, by the way. But Pelicans...
And for staying away.
Yes. They pick him up for the final 8 games of the regular season, as you're looking at on reference right now. 17 points, 53% shooting, including a game-high 26. Doug, he had never scored more than 15 in a game before that. So in this game, Christian actually has one of his worst of the 8 games that he played during this stretch. So what happens to Christian? You would think they'd keep him in New Orleans. Not quite. In fact, David Griffin decides to waive him too after acquiring more front court players in the eventual AD trade, as well as drafting Zion and Jackson Hayes. So there's 2 more front court players. They decided we can't keep Christian Wood. Ends up being a mistake. Pistons pick him up real quick on waivers. From there, he would continue to be a coveted player. We saw a nice contract that the Rockets handed out to him. Becomes a most improved player of the year candidate with his Detroit run. And the Charlotte Hornets almost tried to bring him back. But yeah, like we are watching a game here. We're looking back at a game that was right in the middle of an 8-game stretch that really allowed Christian to become the player that he was today.
Saved his career. Today. I mean, you know, and not if we're looking at this particular box score, he got 20 minutes off the bench, 3 of 7 from the field, 4 free throw attempts, 8 points, 9 rebounds in 20 minutes. That's good. 3 assists. Did have 6 turnovers. So this probably, it's pretty amazing that he did put up those numbers and did. I mean, this particular game wasn't all that great. So the other
this was the worst one in this. Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty stellar. Well, there you go. Christian Wood. Wouldn't you know it?
Coming out party.
That was a good rabbit hole. I appreciated it.
I appreciate that, man. Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate you actually giving me. Yeah, thank you for giving me all the confidence at the beginning to just go ahead and just giving me the runway to roll down and have a smooth takeoff. Thank you for all of that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. All right, it is that time, folks. It is time for the extremely classic. I always get the name wrong. I made the name and I get it wrong. What's it called? It's called the.
What do I know? I'm just sitting here.
Oh, played the sound again. Extremely classic pro basketball player of the podcast.
It's so bad. It's so wood.
Okay, the extremely classic player of the podcast is, drum roll please, the 385th, thank you, 385th best player in the 1950s, according to AinsworthSports.com.
Getting tired.
It is Dick Bunt.
Dick Bunt.
I have Dick Bunt's Wikipedia page.
Ah, man, that's a tough one to live through. That's your nickname. That one's tough.
Seemed to do all right. Play a little pro ball. Let's get the screen share back up. Back.
Do we have a picture of Dick Bunt? And is it okay to search on Google, or did you come across some bad things when you did that?
No. Yeah.
Okay.
Don't Google the player that we put on the screen last time. I realized watching back, Zippy Morocco had an unfortunate ending to his life, and we had that on the screen probably far too long.
So much good. I didn't even. Yeah.
Sorry, Zippy.
Well, considering this guy's. Let
me tell you about Richard J. Bunt, otherwise known as Dick Bunt. He was an American basketball player who played in the National Basketball Association during the 1952-53 season, played collegiately for New York University, was selected by the New York Knicks in the 1952 NBA draft. Bunt played for the Knicks and Baltimore Bullets in the NBA for 26 games. After he finished his NBA career, he was a physical education teacher at William C. Bryan High School in Astoria, Queens, New York. Always loved the game of basketball. There you go.
Oh, R.I.P. just last year. R.I.P.
Wow.
Dick Bunt.
Yeah. Oh, man.
91. Long life, though.
Dickie B. Yeah, we could probably find. I don't want to do it on screen. Just to you don't want to Google image search Dick Bunt on the screen.
I mean, it sounds like playing baseball with your pants down. It can't be good on a Google search.
Okay, I think I found old Dickie Bunt. This was his collegiate days playing for NYU. Here we go.
Got to check us out on YouTube for this one. Okay. There's a Kirk Cousins lookalike. I don't know why Kirk Cousins' face came up there.
I don't know why Kirk Cousins came up on the Google image search for Dick Bunt, but people who watch Kirk Cousins probably have some indication as to why that's the case. But there he is, Dickie B. NYU great. 385th best player of the 1950s. An extremely classic. I think I can play try to play the intro again. There we go. Extremely classic. I have to play the intro just to read this. Extremely classic pro basketball player of the podcast. The names aren't long enough for anything. I'm glad that you gave us the abbreviation of the B.E.E.S Machine, because it would be a total Doug move to just go ahead and read every time what that stands for. So thank you for simplifying it. Well, thank you, Walker, for helping me do this show from your new location. I can't wait till it's featured on, this will be on Locked On Hornets, but until it's featured on an actual episode of Locked On Hornets. And I just want to give a shout out to all of the people who are supporting this show on our Substack, Every Hornets Basketball. Good. I'm glad I made one more mistake before this episode.
We got to find all of them. Every single one of the basketballs. We're going after them. We dare to do that.
Every Hornets podcast. Every Hornets Boxscore.com.
Reach deep.
It's been a long day, Walker. I've been doing a lot of podcasting today. The Substack is called Every Hornets Box Score, and we look at every Hornets box score. And when the season gets back started, this actual future Hornets season that we have in front of us, the 2022-23 season, I'm going to be doing a game notes on every Hornets box score. So make sure to check that out. You can sign up for free. You can support the show. It's all good. Thank you, Walker. I appreciate it. And we will be back next week with more box scores. We're going back to the early Hornets run, and I hope we get a good one. And I hope we get some guests. I have a feeling. I'm feeling we're going to have a guest on the next episode. Just saying. I don't know. I don't know for sure. Obviously, I don't know, but I have a good feeling that we might be talking to someone who once suited up in a Charlotte Hornets uniform. I don't want to jinx it, but I think we're going to talk to someone.
What a tease. Stay tuned. I'm excited.